This is a Dynamite Network podcast.
Hi, and welcome to Dynamic Duel Podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And for Spooktober in this Halloween season, guys, we have a special treat for you. Just like last year, how we kind of surprised you guys with our Deceased versus Marvel Zombies team duel episode, we're doing it again. We're going to do another spooky team duel and find out who would win in a fight between the Creature Commandos and the Legion of Monsters / Howling Commandos.
Yeah, of course, this is perfect timing because DC has a Creature Commandos television series that will be coming out later on this year.
Yeah, I really can't wait to get into this duel match, learn about both teams, and of course, find out who will win. That's all coming later on this episode. Before that, we're going to break down the latest comic book movie news to come out this past week, of which there's quite a bit of news coming out of New York Comic Con, including our first look at Krypto in the DCU Superman film, the Creature Commandos official trailer, the Batman Ninja vs. Yakuza League new trailer, and the Watchmen Chapter 2 official trailer.
All DC news.
Yeah, that's kind of lame, but Marvel got a lot of big news coming out of D23 a few months ago. Plus, Marvel's going to win this matchup, so...
Oh, you think, huh? Oh,
I'm not too concerned, yeah.
As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic. Our artificially intelligent duel simulator, AJ9K, has a quick message for our listeners, so listen up.
Why, hello there. Do you want even more from this podcast? Then become a part of the Dynamic Duel community on Patreon, where you can choose from 3 tiers. The Dynamic 2.0 tier gives you access to our Discord chat server, the Fantastic 4 tier gives you 2 bonus episodes each month, and the X-Force tier makes you an executive producer of this show. Lastly, the Dynamite Podcast Network tier lets you create your own podcast using this Monte Carlo simulator. Johnny and Joe will help you develop your show, provide graphic support and consultation, and get you simulation results. Pitch the twins your ideas via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. Check it out at patreon.com/dynamicduel. Pip pip cheerio.
Thanks, AJ9K, and thanks to everyone who supports the podcast. Be sure to tune in to the other shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network this week, including Max Destruction, which pits your favorite action heroes from film and television against each other. This week, hosts Scotty and Gilly are determining the winner between Beetlejuice and Freddy Krueger.
So that's going to be really good. On the Central World podcast, host Zachary Hepburn speculates on fights between fan-favorite anime and manga characters. This Thursday, Zach will find out who will win between Shinji Ikari from Evangelion and Matsuri King Orochi from One Punch Man.
That's going to be another good one.
Hell yeah.
Finally, on the Console Combat podcast, hosts John and Dean simulate battles between popular video game characters. In yesterday's episode, they reviewed Willy's Wonderland, following their review of Five Nights at Freddy's from the previous week.
Visit dynamicpodcasts.com or click the link in our show notes to listen to all of the shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network.
But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize! A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on Instagram for the person that we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. Last week, we asked, what has been your favorite live-action Marvel or DC television series so far, and why?
And that was coming off of the hype of the Green Lantern casting for the upcoming Lantern series on HBO.
We got a number of answers. Let's break down this week's honorable mentions before revealing the No Prize winner. Our first honorable mention goes to Colby Henches, who said,
"Hey boys, Colby Henches. The best live-action comic show from Marvel or DC was Marvel's Runaways on Hulu. It was 3 seasons. It was amazingly cast and acted. They even brought the girl who played Nico back to play her again in the Marvel Midnight Suns video game. I don't regret a minute of that show. It was fun start to finish. It should have had more seasons."
So this one gets the honorable mention right out of the gate because I feel like it was controversial, at least as far as my feelings go regarding the Runaways television series. If you listen to our review of the Runaways Season 2, which is the only season that we reviewed on this podcast, you'll note that I didn't really like the changes that the show had made from the original comic book series, which I thought was a lot more exciting than the television show. The television show kind of became its own thing. And I'll admit that it was well cast and the special effects were great, but it was largely a teen drama, which is how I guess you could describe the comic book series. But there was a lot more adrenaline and suspense and fantastical elements in the comic book series that weren't present in the live action show. But I appreciate an opinion that differs from mine. I don't know if Colby Henches is a fan of the Runaways comic books, but I know that a lot of people really like the Runaways, and it was always interesting to get their perspective on why.
I feel like it appealed to a younger generation than you and I are. And that's cool. That's fine. I do have to say, though, that the comic book series, while I never read it, I am a big fan of the author, Brian K. Vaughan. He wrote another one of my favorite series, Why the Last Man. It was a DC Vertigo comic book. Fantastic piece of literature. Brian K. Vaughan is the man. And I kind of wish they would have adapted the comic series more faithfully in the television series.
But critics liked The Runaways too, so yeah, maybe it should have got more seasons, but I think that ended due to Marvel Studios' takeover of Marvel Television.
Yeah, that's right. Great answer, Colby. Our next honorable mention goes to Michael Williams, who said,
Mike Williams out of St. Louis, Missouri. Live action show between DC, it'd be Peacemaker and Teen Titans. Really loved Peacemaker, the last episode where the Justice League showed up. As far as Marvel, Falcon, Winter Soldier. Enjoy your show. And as always, make mine Marvel. Take care.
Yeah, in reference to the Teen Titans series, I think he's referring to the live-action Titans series that was on Max, which I think got better season by season. Peacemaker is also on Max. I love that show, which was written by James Gunn, the new head of the DCU, and I'm really looking forward to season 2, along with everything else he's going to bring to the universe.
Yeah, and Michael also mentioned for Marvel, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier Disney Plus series. And yeah, for my money, the first episode of that series had one of the best MCU action scenes of all time. Great answer, Michael. Our next honorable mention goes to Daniel Alonso, who said,
Okay, well, there's only one answer for this, and it's got to be Daredevil. I mean, hands down. It's got incredible fight scenes. The cinematography is amazing. The freaking acting, the all-star cast, Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, John Bernthal, Deborah Ann Woll, like, come on. It's incredible. And Daredevil, oh my God, we finally get Daredevil how he should be. Oh, dude, there's not enough that I could say about that. I mean, yeah, hands down, it's got to be Daredevil. There's no other answer. That's it.
Daredevil is not just one of the best superhero television series out there. It's one of the best television series of all time, period. It's so well made, and I think it truly transcends the comic book genre and totally appeals to fans of crime series and stuff like that as well. I can't say enough good things about the Daredevil show.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you about it transcending the genre, particularly in season 3. That season, I was just riveted every episode. It was so damn good. I've gotten pretty nervous with the character popping up in the Spider-Man movie and She-Hulk. I really don't want Disney to ruin the character, but it looks like with all of the different crew changes and reshoots that they've done with the upcoming Daredevil Born Again series, it should be pretty good.
I don't think there's anything to worry about regarding the show making its transition from Netflix to Disney Plus, because it's been confirmed that on Disney Plus, Daredevil Born Again is going to be TVMA. And judging from, the leaked trailers and stuff that have come out of New York Comic-Con and D23, it's going to be incredible, still keeping in the tone of the Netflix show. And they announced the premiere date for Daredevil Born Again. It's going to be March 4th, 2025, and the season is going to be 9 episodes.
Are you serious? I didn't know that. Oh, it's going to be forever until March now. Dig it.
Yeah, it's quite a ways away, but good things come to those who wait, as they say. We as comic book movie fans know this most of the time.
Great answer, Daniel. We want to give a quick shout out to Mason Thompson for taking the time to visit our website and record an answer. But the winner of this week's No Prize is Travis Bailey, who said,
Hey, what's up? Travis Bailey. Shout out to my good twin. Look, Marvel, everybody knows this, dominates every form of media as far as comics is concerned. Print, movies, animation, yes, animation. But if we're being honest, it has to be Watchmen. I mean, the product that they put out on HBO. I mean, known for prestige television, it did not disappoint. Got some Emmy nods. It validates everything incessant DC fans say about their product.
I think the main point that we want to take away from Travis Bailey's answer is that Marvel dominates everything over DC, including animation.
Except apparently television, which I guess you're admitting. Watchmen hands down is the best series that I think has ever been produced as an adaptation from the comics. Now, of course, the Watchmen series was a sequel to the Watchmen comic, but holy cow, was it a phenomenal one. It was a better sequel than anything DC has produced since then, including Doomsday Clock.
I don't know if Watchmen is a better show than Daredevil.
Yes, it is.
But it's up there. It was a really damn good show for sure.
And not only did it get a few Emmy nods, it freaking won more Emmys the year it came out than any other show it was competing against. It won a Peabody Award, which is unheard of. Like a television series, one based off of a comic book that wins a Peabody? Incredible.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Watchmen on HBO and you're a fan of Watchmen, definitely check it out because it was really well conceived, really well made.
Yeah, Damon Lindelof served as the showrunner for Watchmen, and he's also serving as the showrunner for the upcoming Lantern series, which gets me super, super pumped for that. So congrats to Travis Bailey for winning this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on in this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week.
And now that that's done,
on to the news. So last week, James Gunn on social media not only confirmed that Krypto will be in the upcoming Superman movie that's going to hit theaters in 2025, but he also shared the first look at Krypto as he's sitting next to Superman on the moon overlooking the planet Earth. And I just want to give the dog a huge hug because he's so cuddly.
What?
And don't deny you don't either.
I'm good, bro.
You know. That is just like the scruffiest, just fluffiest dog ever. Just want to pet that guy. In the social media post where he made the announcement, James Gunn talked about the inspiration for including Krypto in this movie, and it was a dog that he had rescued named Ozu, and he was talking about how when they first got him, he was just destroying everything in the house, and it kind of inspired James Gunn to be like, oh, what if Ozu had superpowers? Like, that would be so much more wild and possibly humorous. So it kind of indicated a comedic tone that Krypto may have in the Superman movie.
So does that mean that the Superman movie is going to be about how Superman gets Krypto?
No, I don't believe so. We're entering the DCU as an established universe. And so I think Krypto is just going to be, one of Superman's allies in the film. I'm not sure how large of a role he'll have in the movie, considering it looks like he's CG and he may be expensive to produce. But I also just love the fact that they're including him. We haven't seen Krypto since League of Super Pets, the animated film. But it's really cool to actually see him make the jump to live action.
What do you think of the image itself of Superman sitting next to Krypto on the moon?
I love this image. I really freaking love it. It made me so much happier than I thought it would, and just kind of really washed all of the bad taste of Joker 2 out of my mouth.
I think DC fans are getting a little bit overhyped about this image because essentially you're just looking at Superman's back and Krypto's back, and it's like, who cares, right?
But it's like an iconic looking image. Like, it just framed really well as they look over the planet. And it's just a joy, I guess, to see Superman with his dog.
I guess so.
You
cold-hearted piece of shit. Why? Because I'm not gushing all over this image? It's been posted to death by this point. I'm sick of seeing it. As a teaser image, it's fine. But, I'm waiting for a trailer already.
Oh, same. Yeah, absolutely. The movie comes out in summer of next year, so I actually think we'll be getting a teaser trailer soon, maybe by the holiday season.
Yeah, I'd put my money on that. Around Christmas time, we'll get the trailer for Superman.
Fingers crossed. Moving on to the trailers that were released during New York Comic Con, starting with Creature Commandos. This show is coming out December 5th, and it's going to kick off James Gunn's DCU. We've already seen some footage from the teaser trailer, but this is the first official trailer that has been released by DC Studios. The premise the show is setting up, it looks like, is that because the government found out about Amanda Waller's Task Force X or Suicide Squad due to the events at the end of Peacemaker Season 1, she's now forced to pull from a different set of prisoners, namely ones that aren't human, in order to accomplish these dangerous, impossible tasks, and that is the Creature Commandos. From this trailer, it looks like the core team's roster is going to be The Bride, Dr. Phosphorus, Weasel, Dr. Nina Mazursky, and G.I. Robot. Frankenstein is also going to be making appearances, and he's going to be voiced by David Harbour, but it looks like maybe he's just a side character for the team. He won't be there the whole time. And of course, Rick Flag Sr., voiced by Frank Grillo, is also a member of the team.
Is the villain Magenta at the beginning of this trailer? It looks like her, kind of.
I don't believe so. I don't actually know who this character is. I think it's Cersei, because I remember reading that Cersei was going to be a character in the show. So my bet is that it's her.
We also get to see Clayface in this trailer, which I thought was pretty surprising because I didn't know he was going to show up either.
Yeah, Clayface is just showing up everywhere, isn't he?
This is like the year of Clayface, I swear to God. Between Suicide Squad Isekai, Batman Caped Crusader, and his guest appearance in Kite Man, hell yeah, season 1. Yeah, he's all over the place.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. And he looks really cool in this trailer. I swear, if they adapt this version to live action, I will lose my mind, because that would just be incredible. There's also some cameos from some rather obscure characters, including Kongorilla and Rubber Duck. I've never heard of that character before, but apparently it's a thing. The show looks like it's going to be really good. I especially like the character arcs that it looks like we're getting for The Bride and Dr. Nina Mazursky and G.I. Robot. I think the show is going to be really heartfelt, and I can't wait to see it when it comes out in early December. This trailer definitely has me pumped for the show. I love the Creature Commandos. It does look like this one's going to be gratuitously violent, but that's pretty much in keeping with James Gunn's The Suicide Squad film and Peacemaker, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, as everyone knows, the Creature Commandos are a team comprised of kind of spooky characters, so that brings us to our question of the week.
Who do you think is the scariest Marvel or DC character, and why?
Yeah, we'll be going through these answers for our next episode, which will drop on Halloween Day. So record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message could be up to 30 seconds long, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and award that person a Dynamic Duel No prize that we'll post to Instagram. Be sure to answer before October 26th.
Another DC trailer also came out during New York Comic Con, Batman Ninja versus Yakuza League. I loved the first Batman Ninja, and everything I see coming out about this sequel just gets me more and more pumped for this film. In the previous teaser trailer that we got for this, we speculated that perhaps the actions from the first film resulted in the future being affected and influencing the modern world with more Japanese elements, particularly in Gotham City. But it actually looks like this alternate dimension is being folded on top of Gotham City, sort of like origami. And in this alternate dimension of Japan, it's ruled over by a Yakuza League, or different Justice League members that are like evil Yakuza versions of themselves, or at least most of them are. It kind of seems like Wonder Woman might be good in this movie, whereas everyone else is bad.
Well, it's like competing Japanese factions, the Ninkyo versus the Yakuza. And I thought it was really cool how it looks like the islands of Japan are over Gotham City. So you have things like Yakuza storms where they just rain down onto Gotham City and cause chaos.
Which is wild because the Yakuza storms are actually Yakuza gangsters, just like flooding a city. It's pretty cool. The character designs, as we've said before, look so damn cool, particularly Aquaman, as we get to see a little bit more of him. The different looks for Wonder Woman are also really cool. I can't wait to see Superman. They're still hiding him from us. I figure he's going to be the main bad guy, or at least like the final bad guy, because it definitely looks like Ra's al Ghul is heavily involved in whatever is going on with these dimensional folds.
The story looks like it's going to be really good too, really heartfelt. You know, like the line from Batman who says it's most dangerous when a friend becomes an enemy and things like that. Seems pretty deep and everything. The only thing that I don't like about this project is the animation itself is no good. Especially coming off of like Suicide Squad Isekai.
Yeah.
And how that was hand-drawn traditional anime animation, and you go to this computer-generated shit.
There were parts of Batman Ninja in the first one that were computer animated that I really liked. Like the statues of the villains that Catwoman was introducing Batman to when she was setting up the feudal world that Batman was currently in within Japan. I do hope we'll get more animation in that style, but who knows? I agree, like, Suicide Squad Isekai totally ruined a lot of other DC animation for me, but I'm still looking forward to the story for this one. It's coming out in early 2025. We don't have an exact release date yet, but look for it then. But speaking of bad-looking CG, the last trailer we want to talk about this episode is the official trailer for Watchmen Chapter 2. Now, if you've listened to our review for Watchmen Chapter 1, we didn't really care for that film. It was kind of pointless.
Yeah, being an inferior version, adaptation-wise, of the Zack Snyder 2009 live-action film, this kind of felt a little bit redundant. And the second part to the Watchmen animated movie also looks the same.
I mean, yeah, not only was it not as good as Zack Snyder's adaptation, it's just not as good as the book either, in that it tries to be a perfect adaptation of the book, and yet fails to capture a lot of the things of what makes the book in the form of the comic medium so special. So, considering that, it's really hard to get excited for Watchmen Chapter 2. The animation still looks like it's going to be very wooden and not nearly as good as some of DC's other animated projects.
That being said, the second half of the Watchmen story has some incredible moments, like Rorschach's origin story, the prison escape scene, the fight in Karnak. So there's a lot to look forward to story-wise here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, some of the best moments from Watchmen happen in the second half. The first half was really all build up for this, right? Including a killer twist.
I'm really interested in seeing the design of the squid and how they incorporate that here. I wonder if it'll be as good as what they showed in the HBO Watchmen series, or if it'll look more like the comics, or what it'll look like.
Well, based on what we've seen from this two-part film, it's going to be almost exactly like what we've seen in the comics, considering that they're really trying their hardest to capture artist Dave Gibbons' style. It's not going to top what we saw in the Watchmen television series. I already know that. I'm already prepared for that. Really, I'm prepared for the whole damn thing because, again, I read this book like once every year, every 2 years. I know it by heart, basically. So there's not much to look forward to.
Maybe for people new to the story, but like we said in our review, I think if someone's coming in new, I would just recommend a different adaptation than this one. Or just, read the original comic.
Oh, absolutely. I have multiple versions of the graphic novel for that very purpose. Someone tells me they haven't read Watchmen, I'm like, here, take it. Just take it, read it. I'm not anticipating any kind of surprise with this adaptation. Again, I think it's going to be very much by the numbers from the comic, but who knows? We'll see. Part 2 of this film is coming out on digital and Blu-ray on November 26th, so we will be reviewing this in a little bit over a month. If you haven't read Watchmen and don't know how it ends, read the comic before part 2 comes out and before you watch that.
Or, if you're a Marvel fan, just go on living your life, because who cares?
If you're a Marvel fan, you should read Watchmen so that you know what a good comic is.
Shut the fuck up. But that does it for all the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and get into our main event, which will be a team duel between the spooktastic Marvel and DC teams of Creature Commandos and the Legion of Monsters. Alright, Creature Commandos versus the Legion of Monsters. We decided to go with this duel episode along with the executive producers because it was just too good of an opportunity to pass up. We got a lot of great feedback last year when we did the Deceased versus Marvel Zombies, and this is always a fun time of year to do these type of duel episodes. It is nice to do something special around these seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when it comes to characters that I love, like the Creature Commandos.
Yeah, we figured this would be good to do in lead up to the Creature Commandos animated television show that'll be coming out in a few months. Both teams are comprised of classic Halloween creatures. It's kind of like the Monster Mash of Marvel and DC.
Absolutely. This is going to be a graveyard smash.
When did the Creature Commandos originate in DC Comics in terms of publication history? Because the Legion of Monsters came out in the 1970s, and actually the Legion of Monsters #1 issue was published by an imprint of Marvel called Curtis Comics that refused to carry the Comics Code Authority seal, so they could tell these more supernatural stories, like with Dracula and Frankenstein and the creature from the Black Lagoon, or Amphibian, as he's known in Marvel.
Well, I guess it looks like Marvel came out first here because the Creature Commandos didn't come out until 1980.
What a ripoff. What a damn ripoff. Hey, it's like you always tell me. It's not about who comes first, it's about who does it better. So Legion of Monsters then. All right. But to explain the methodology behind our duels, let's go to our sentient duel simulator, Alfred Jarvis 9000. AJ and IK, tell our listeners how you go about determining a winner in our duel matchups.
Yes, of course, sir. The way I determine a winner between the two teams is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations between every character on each team using their statistics. A Monte Carlo simulation is a probabilistic model used to determine outcomes through random sampling. In this case, I randomize the statistics along a normal distribution as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters are based on the official Marvel power grid, from which the DC characters' statistics are extrapolated. Additional stat categories are included such as range, damage potential, versatility, and perception in order to create a more detailed and accurate simulation. The results of the 49,000 simulations provide a percentage of wins for each character on both teams. The team with the higher average win rate is declared the victor, as they have a higher probability to win any given battle. In an equitable pairing, neither team should win 100% of the matches. The comic book stories have shown that there's even a way for Batman to defeat Superman, so the confidence rate of my method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the source material. My mathematical simulations are without subjectivity or bias. Feats are not the sole consideration, nor are fan votes tabulated for determination of the winner.
Thanks, AJ9K. Before we run the simulations, though, we like to break down each team's histories and rosters before improvising a scenario on how we imagine one of the thousands of simulations would play out beat for beat. And I believe it's my turn to go first with the DC team's backstory, so let me tell you all about the Creature Commandos. Now, during World War II, the United States government launched a top-secret project known as Project M, aimed at creating experimental super soldiers and psychological weapons. Led by Professor Mazursky, the program operated from a hidden laboratory beneath the Statue of Liberty. Recognizing the fear that monsters evoked, Mazursky aimed to weaponize this by transforming volunteers into grotesque beings inspired by classic horror archetypes. The first volunteers included Warren Griffith, a soldier suffering from delusions of lycanthropy, who is transformed into a werewolf, Vincent Velcro, a court-martialed soldier turned into a vampire, and Elliot Lucky Taylor, a severely wounded soldier reconstructed as a patchwork Frankenstein-esque monster. Dr. Myrna Rhodes, a plastic surgeon exposed to mutagenic chemicals that transformed her into a gorgon with snakes for hair, also joined the team as Dr. Medusa. This team became the Creature Commandos, led by the hardened Lieutenant Matthew Shreve, who often viewed the Commandos as mere tools for the war effort. The Creature Commandos were deployed across Europe and beyond, taking on both conventional and supernatural threats. Their first mission in France involved destroying Nazi android duplicates of Allied leaders, proving their effectiveness as a strike team. Operating out of London, they embarked on numerous high-risk operations, including the mission to rescue Dr. René Frederic, a scientist with knowledge of chemical nerve gas, though the Commandos initially rescued a Nazi agent posing as Frederic. In a rare moment of humanity, the agent sacrificed herself to save the team, challenging the Commandos' perspective. The team eventually found the real Dr. Frederic in a death camp, but, under orders, killed her to prevent her knowledge from falling into enemy hands. This mission deeply affected the team, particularly Lucky Taylor, who attempted suicide afterward. Though doctors repaired his body, the trauma left him mute. As their missions continued, the Commandos faced morally ambiguous tasks, testing their loyalty and moral compass. One mission involved eliminating Nazi super soldier children at a German boarding school. While the Commandos hesitated to kill children, Shreve took matters into his own hands and gunned them down, creating a rift within the team. Despite these dark tasks, the Commandos also found moments of redemption. In one mission, they rescued a group of blind French children from a Nazi attack, earning medals of honor. Yet internal conflict persisted and Shreve briefly left the team, feeling his leadership style was too harsh. After a successful mission rescuing French civilians, Shreve was reinstated. In 1943, the Commandos were sent to the South Pacific to investigate the disappearance of Allied planes near Dinosaur Island. There they discovered a hidden Japanese naval fleet and turned the island's dinosaurs against the enemy ships, using the creatures as weapons. Shreve documented the dinosaurs for military intelligence, but Velcro destroyed the photographs, fearing that war would bring destruction to these creatures. The Commandos later returned to Dinosaur Island where they encountered Jake, the first GI robot. Together they discovered a supposed lost colony of Atlantis responsible for sinking ships. Atlantean robots had taken control of Jake, but he ultimately overrode their programming and sacrificed himself to destroy the colony, preventing further attacks on Allied vessels. Following Jake's destruction, the Commandos met his replacement, Jake II, who joined the team and expanded their capabilities. As World War II neared its end, Project M tasked the Commandos with a final mission, piloting an experimental rocket aimed at Berlin. The rocket malfunctioned, veering off course and drifting into space with the Commandos aboard. With the original team lost, Project M later shifted its focus to creating new super soldiers. Over time, the program produced a series of new recruits to replace the original Commandos, expanding its reach beyond traditional monsters. One such recruit was Captain Lucius Hunter, who took over leadership duties in place of Shreve. Hunter, an older veteran who had undergone extensive rejuvenation therapies, led a new iteration of the Creature Commandos called M-Team Alpha. M-Team Alpha included fresh faces like Aten, a mummy-like communication specialist, the Bogman, an amphibious creature resembling a gillman, and Gunner Mackey, a revived World War II soldier turned into a cyborg zombie. This modernized version of the Creature Commandos continued Project M's legacy, adapting to new threats and expanding its roster to face evolving challenges. Years later, the original Creature Commandos were discovered aboard an alien vessel controlled by Brainiac. Freed from stasis, they joined forces with other heroes to fight their captors. Upon returning to Earth, the team was captured by General Sam Lane and integrated into Project 7734. A program aimed at destroying Kryptonians. Despite their capture, the Commandos were never deployed against the Kryptonians during the tensions between Earth and New Krypton. Following the disbandment of Project 7734, Maxwell Lord took control of the Commandos and deployed them against the Justice League International. Under Lord's telepathic influence, the Commandos fought for a time but eventually broke free from his mind control. Realizing they no longer had a clear purpose or allegiance in this new era, the Commandos faced uncertainty as their monstrous forms and tortured pasts left them relics of a bygone age. In the post-Flashpoint timeline, the Creature Commandos were reimagined as field operatives for the secretive organization SHADE, or the Superhuman Advanced Defense Executive. This version of the team was led by Frankenstein, replacing the original leader, Matthew Shreve. Dr. Nina Mazursky, now a scientist and geneticist for SHADE, spearheaded the program using the legacy of Project M to design a new generation of Creature Commandos. Mazursky herself transformed into a hybrid amphibious creature resembling a gillman to better fight alongside her creations. Vincent Velcoro was again turned into a vampire, with his abilities derived from a modified version of Dr. Kirk Langstrom's Man-Bat serum. Warren Griffith retained his werewolf form, now more stable and controlled, allowing him to harness his primal nature more effectively. The team also included Khalees, an enigmatic Egyptian mummy whose origin remained a mystery, but who served as the team's medic. Under Frankenstein's leadership, the Commandos tackled a range of supernatural threats. One of their missions involved combating giant monsters emerging from Bone Lake, Washington, showcasing their role as humanity's frontline against the monstrous and supernatural. The team faced personal challenges as well. The bride, Frankenstein's estranged wife, departed after learning the fate of their son, leaving a void in the team's dynamic. Despite their monstrous appearances, the Commandos remained dedicated to defending humanity, evolving under Mazursky's guidance as she continued merging cutting-edge science with the macabre legacy of Project M. Now, team-wise, I knew that for my 7-person roster, I'd want a blend of the old, original team members that showcased classic monster archetypes with the newer, more tech and occult-focused Commandos that we've seen in recent iterations of the team. From the early roster, I'm including Warren Griffith, the werewolf, Vincent Velcoro, the vampire, Dr. Mira Rhodes, aka Dr. Medusa, and the GI robot, Jake II. Noticeably absent from this original roster is Lieutenant Shreve, because who wants a human on a monster team? And Lucky Taylor, whom I'm replacing with Frankenstein, who you can learn more about in our Frankenstein vs. Bloodstone Duel episode. Along for the ride will be Frankenstein's bride, as well as a third agent of Shade, Dr. Nina Mazursky, the aquatic gill woman responsible for creating the newest versions of the Commandos. So to recap, that's Frankenstein, his bride Lady Frankenstein, the werewolf Griffith, the vampire Velcoro, Dr. Medusa, Dr. Mazursky, and Jake 2, the GI robot.
I think one of the most interesting things I learned there was that the team was created in World War II just because the professor wanted soldiers that would be scary in a traditional Halloween monster sense.
Yeah, he wanted to scare Nazis with classic Hollywood monsters, essentially.
That's kind of lame. That's
okay.
That was kind of an anticlimactic origin for the team, I think. Like if they were to make a Creature Commandos for today, they would create soldiers that look like, I don't know, Freddy Krueger or Mike Myers or something like that. I don't know. It just seems weird. But sure, in concept, they're a cool team. But not as cool as the Legion of Monsters. Let me go ahead and break down their backstory. The Legion of Monsters was never a traditional superhero team. It was a collection of outcasts brought together by strange circumstances and united by their monstrous nature. The original lineup came together during an encounter with the Starseed, the benevolent alien entity. While investigating its appearance, Morbius, the living vampire, Werewolf by Night, Man-Thing, and Ghost Rider found themselves drawn together. Overcome by their monstrous hungers, Morbius and Werewolf by Night attacked Starseed, inadvertently causing its death. The dying Starseed, in a final act of mercy, tried to cure the Legion of their monstrous forms, but was too weak to succeed. Disillusioned, the team parted ways, barely recognizing themselves as a team, not yet realizing that they had laid the foundation for something much larger. Now, Jack Russell, also known as Werewolf by Night, inherited his curse from his father's bloodline, transforming into a werewolf with every full moon. Though he initially lacked control, he gradually learned to manage his transformations, making him a powerful ally when the Legion briefly came together to investigate Starseed. Russell's superhuman strength, speed, heightened senses, and near indestructibility, save for his vulnerability to silver, made him one of the most fearsome members of the Legion of Monsters, though the team's dissolution left him once again wandering the world alone. You can learn more about him in our Solomon Grundy vs. Werewolf by Night duel episode. Years later, Morbius found himself at the helm of a new incarnation of the Legion of Monsters, this time with a clearer mission: to protect monsters from being hunted. The world had grown increasingly hostile toward any creatures perceived as a threat, and Morbius, along with his old ally Man-Thing, sought to create a safe haven for monsters. They were soon joined by the Living Mummy, Manphibian, and Simon Garth the Zombie. The Living Mummy, once known as Nkantu, was the prince of a North African tribe before being captured and cursed by Egyptian priests. Mummified and held in a state of eternal life, Nkantu awoke in the modern era and joined the Legion of Monsters. His superhuman strength, able to lift around 5 tons, and durability, along with his immortality, made him a valuable protector of those who could not defend themselves. Although he longed for peace, his curse bound him to a world he barely understood. Manphibian, an alien who had traveled to Earth thousands of years ago while pursuing the murderer of his mate, also joined the Legion's ranks. His amphibious physiology gave him tremendous strength, able to lift around 15 tons, sharp claws, a healing factor, and skin tough enough to withstand missile attacks. Simon Garth the Zombie had once been a businessman in New Orleans before being sacrificed by a voodoo cult and transformed into a zombie. Though bound by the amulet of Damballa, which allowed his controller to command him, Garth retained a shred of humanity that fueled his desire to protect those who could not protect themselves. As part of the Legion, Garth used his immense strength, mystical senses, and healing abilities to fight with the Legion for a better future for all monsters. As the Legion solidified its purpose, they established Monster Metropolis, a sanctuary city hidden beneath the streets of New York in the Morlock tunnels. This underground refuge provided safety to countless creatures, but it also put the Legion in direct conflict with groups like the Hunter of Monster Special Forces, led by Robert Helsgard. During one battle between the groups, the Legion resurrected the Punisher, transforming him into the monstrous Frankencastle. With his newfound form, Frankencastle fought alongside the Legion to defend Monster Metropolis, though his return to humanity would eventually lead him away from the team. You can learn more about this in our Red Hood vs. Punisher Duel episode. As the Legion of Monsters grew, their ranks began to attract other powerful beings, include Satana Hellstrom, the half-demon daughter of Marduk Kurios, aka Satan. Satana spent years as a succubus, feeding on the souls of men to sustain her powers. When she joined the Legion, her mastery over black magic, teleportation, and hellfire proved invaluable in their battles. Though her motivations often remained mysterious, Satana's raw power made her a force to be reckoned with, and her demonic nature tied her fate to the other monsters who sought refuge in Monster Metropolis. While the Legion of Monsters fought to protect their own, another group was forming in the shadows, this time under the auspices of S.H.I.E.L.D., the global peacekeeping organization. The team was called the Howling Commandos, and they were a special unit tasked with handling supernatural threats that ordinary agents could not. Based at Area 13, a secret facility designed to contain paranormal entities, the Howling Commandos recruited several members of the Legion of Monsters, including the Living Mummy, Amphibian, and Zombie, who formed a new strike force against supernatural and extraterrestrial dangers. Alongside these veterans came new recruits, including Nina Price, the Vampire by Night. Nina, the niece of Werewolf by Night, had inherited the family's curse of lycanthropy, but was later bitten by a vampire, transforming her into a hybrid of both creatures. She joined the Howling Commandos to keep her powers in check and quickly became an integral part of the team, using her supernatural strength, able to lift half a ton, agility, hypnosis, fangs, and healing abilities to fight against mystical threats. Her immunity to sunlight made her a unique asset as she could operate during the day, something most vampires could not. Another addition to the Howling Commandos was Glob, a creature formed when Joe Timms, a petty criminal, drowned in a radioactive swamp and was resurrected as a near-indestructible monster. Despite his simple-mindedness, Glob's immense strength, able to lift around 100 tons, and resilience made him an effective member of the Howling Commandos, particularly in missions where brute force was needed. His body, made of swamp matter, could absorb physical attacks with little effect, making him nearly impossible to harm. The Howling Commandos' first major mission came when they were called to stop the ancient sorcerer Merlin from transforming England into a mythical kingdom. They launched a daring assault on Merlin's forces, ultimately forcing the wizard to retreat. This victory cemented the Howling Commandos as a key player in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s supernatural division, and the team continued to take on threats ranging from demonic invasions to rogue mystical artifacts. As both the Legion of Monsters and the Howling Commandos battled supernatural threats, the members constantly confronted the duality of their existence. They fought not only to protect their fellow monsters, but also to reconcile the parts of themselves that were both human and monstrous. Now, choosing the roster for this Legion of Monsters team duel was particularly difficult because a lot of Marvel's most prominent supernatural characters, like Morbius, Ghost Rider, and Man-Thing, I already used in our Justice League Dark vs. Midnight Suns duel episode. That being said, there was still Werewolf by Night and a slew of other prominent Halloweenish characters I could pull from for this Halloween duel. First on my list, of course, is Werewolf by Night, who was a founding member of the Legion of Monsters and the Howling Commandos. Next is the Living Mummy, who was also an early member of both teams alongside Zombie and Amphibian. Satana became a prominent member of the Legion of Monsters in their second iteration, and from the Howling Commandos, I'm pulling two members that are largely serving as stand-ins for Legion of Monsters characters, and that's Vampire by Night, who's substituting for Morbius, and Glob, who I'm substituting for Man-Thing, because if you're going to have a Halloween creature duel, you need a vampire and a swamp monster. So that's my lineup. Werewolf by Night, the Living Mummy, Zombie, Amphibian, Satana, Vampire by Night, and Glob, the swamp monster.
Your names are terrible.
What?
Yeah,
Why?
I said it. Griffith, Velcoro, Mazursky, those are way better names.
Those are just fucking last names.
And better than fucking Glob.
Glob is a Hulk villain. It's a great name for a globish creature.
Zombie?
Yeah, Zombie is a zombie. Do you know any other villains named Zombie?
Just saying, it's a little on the nose.
In a world where fantasies collide and heroes clash, one podcast network rises above the rest. Prepare yourself for For the ultimate showdowns in comic books, video games, movies, and anime, the Dynamite Podcast Network presents Console Combat, where video game legends brawl every Monday. Dynamic Duel, where comic book titans smash every Tuesday. Max Destruction, where TV and action heroes battle every Wednesday. And Sendro World, where anime champions clash every Thursday. Join us as we speculate on the matches and, armed with the power of mathematical simulations, discover who will emerge victorious. Visit dynamicpodcast.com, where we settle the debate and settle the score.
Well, now that we got these teams' histories and rosters out of the way, let's speculate on how one of the simulated matches will go. Now, the winning team is going to be determined by simulations, not the speculation, but it's fun to imagine how the fight could play out. AJ and IK, what are the rules of our speculation?
Well, I should say there are no rules, other than the teams have no prior knowledge of the other going into the fight. All they are aware of starting out is that the other side is a threat that needs to be eliminated. For the speculation, the groups will begin approximately 50 meters apart in a nondescript environment that will have no bearing on the match itself, as no environmental statistics are considered in my simulations. The teams must earn victory on their own merit.
All right then, let's get into it. The Creature Commandos and the Legion of Monsters meet on the battlefield. Which team goes first? Well, I mean, I know how my team would start. You know, they're a military team, so most of them, like Frankenstein, Lady Frankenstein, Dr. Medusa, Jake 2, even Nina Mazursky, they all have guns. So they're just going to start by gunning down the League of Monsters in a hail of bullets.
Well, you know that most of the Legion of Monsters are like invulnerable to gunfire, right? Like,
no,
Werewolf by Night can only be killed by silver bullets. Same thing with Vampire by Night. Living Mummy and Zombie, you know, they can't really be hurt too much by small arms fire. Amphibian, the bullets would bounce off of them, and the Glob would just like completely no-sell these bullets. So I guess the only one that could be shot is Satana, but she's probably also one of the most powerful members on my team. So Satana's going to dodge the bullets by flying up into the air, and then she's just going to rain down hellfire, like grenades, just exploding all over the battlefield. And it's going to scatter the Creature Commandos all over, and it's going to make them stop shooting and start diving for cover.
Okay, well, as the team scatters, I'm going to say that Velcoro dodges the flames by transforming into a bat, so he's a smaller target. And with his transformation comes a rolling mist that's going to surround his teammates and hide them from the hellfire. And within the mist, Griffith, with his enhanced wolf senses, he's going to track down Zombie and attack him, just chomping down on his bones.
Why Zombie? Because he smells bad?
Oh, because bones, man. Dogs love bones.
Well, Zombie doesn't give a fuck about this werewolf biting down on his bones. In fact, I'll do you one better. I'm going to say that Griffith straight rips off Zombie's arm bone and swallows it, okay? So Zombie's missing an arm, but all of a sudden, that arm is going to burst out of Griffith's chest because it's still animated by Zombie. So
what?
Griffith like falls onto his back in pain, and he's dead now, and Zombie's arm is going to reach up, Evil Dead style. Zombie grabs it and attaches it back to his shoulder. So Griffith's out of the match already.
Okay, killing right out the gate, I see.
Well, a lot of these guys are kind of like one-trick ponies, you know?
That's true. That's fair. Well, I'm going to say that as Zombie is reattaching his arm back to his shoulder, all of a sudden his head freaking explodes because Lady Frankenstein, with her 4 arms and 4 firearms, she just blasts his head with like 4 simultaneous headshots, turning his brain to slush.
She has 4 arms?
Yeah, she's like Goro.
She doesn't have 4 arms in the television show that's coming up.
Maybe not at the beginning, but I'm pretty sure by the end of it she will.
That's interesting. Okay. All right, so Zombie gets headshot 4 times and dies, but Nina Price, you know, the Vampire by Night, she turns into her wolf form because, you know, in addition to being a vampire, she's also a werewolf. She's actually a white wolf, unlike her uncle, who's brown. But as a werewolf, she uses her senses to track down Vincent Velcoro, who's still in his vampire bat form, flying around. And she snatches him out of the air with her teeth, which is going to force Velcoro into his human form. And Vampire by Night's going to come out of her wolf form. So you have 2 vampires standing off against each other, except that Nina also happens to be a vampire hunter. So she just stakes Velcoro through the heart, killing him.
That backstabbing bitch! Oh, by the way, when I say bitch, I'm only saying that because she's a wolf.
Okay, that's fair. She stabbed him in the chest, not the back.
Oh, okay. You know who is backstabbing, though, or rather back shooting? Frankenstein. Because as Velcoro is dying, Frankenstein, he's gonna load a silver bullet into a steam gun, which hits like a steam-powered train, and he shoots Vampire by Night's entire heart right the hell out of her chest.
Where did he get a silver bullet from?
Dude, he's going up against monsters all the time. You think he doesn't carry a silver bullet?
Okay, that's very convenient, I'll say that. Werewolf by Night sees this, and, you know, he's pissed, and he lets out a blood-curdling howl because his niece just died, and he goes into a rabid frenzy. And because Frankenstein took out one of his family, now Werewolf is going to take out Frankenstein's bride. So, like, in this blur of teeth and claws, Werewolf is just going to rip apart Lady Frankenstein, ripping off all 4 of her arms in an attack that basically looks like she was thrown into a blender. All of her limbs just scatter across the battlefield.
Okay. Well, with Werewolf by Night in this frenzy, and he's probably looking around for another target, and that's when he's going to meet the gaze of Dr. Medusa and her glowing eyes. So bam! Instant petrification. Werewolf by Night is now just an angry-looking stone statue.
She could turn people into stone?
Okay, so she's never done it in the comics, but only because for some reason, anytime she tried to use it in the comics, the people that she used it against were unable to turn into stone, like robots.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
All right. Bullshit. Okay. All right. So Werewolf by Night is a statue, but Living Mummy at this point has lumbered over to Dr. Medusa, and he's just going to grab her by her snake hair and just slam her to the ground.
Yeah, and he gets bitten by her snakes. So he's poisoned and dying now.
But how can Living Mummy be poisoned? He doesn't even have blood in his body. It's like a special magic Egyptian embalming formula. So he doesn't get poisoned. Snake poison does nothing, and Living Mummy just rips Dr. Medusa's head off like Perseus did to the mythological Medusa. So she's out.
He just rips off her head with his bare hands?
Yeah, he's strong. He can lift like 5 tons.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say that as the Living Mummy is holding Dr. Medusa's head, suddenly he just bursts into flames thanks to Jake 2, who transformed his left arm into a flamethrower and is just dousing the Living Mummy's very, very flammable body wrappings in a stream of fire.
That was actually a pretty good move, because Living Mummy is pretty vulnerable to fire since he's all desiccated and stuff, you know? But, you know who's vulnerable to basically nothing? Glob. And he's going to walk over to G.I. Robot as he's doing this, and he's going to completely swallow him up in his swamp muck body. And the swamp matter is just going to ooze into all of G.I. Robot's inner workings, like shutting down his gears and his weapon systems. And Glob is actually the strongest member out of the entire Legion of Monsters. You know, his strength level approaches the Hulk. So just by like flexing, he completely dismantles the guy and then just expels all the robot parts from his swamp body. So now G.I. Robot's out of this match.
Okay. Glob was once human, right?
Yeah, he was a criminal named Joe Timms.
That's right.
Why?
Okay, so while Glob is busy shitting out Jake 2 parts from his body, that's when Dr. Nina Mazursky is going to plunge a syringe right into his thigh, injecting him with a formula that's going to revert Glob back into human form, you know, as Joe Timms. And right when that happens, she's going to blast his head off with her energy gun.
How does she know how to turn Glob back into a human?
No, she's an expert in turning humans into monsters. So yeah, she just did a reverse formula for that.
Fucking stupid. I'll allow it. All right. Well, Amphibian sees what Dr. Nina Mazursky did, and he's a gillman creature just like her. But for some reason, she only breathes water, right? She's not amphibious like him. Like she always walks around with that water cooler helmet of hers.
She could breathe air. Like initially she couldn't. She had to wear that helmet full of water, but the mummy Khalees made it so that she could breathe both water and in the air.
Oh, well, regardless, Amphibian's going to shatter her water helmet by smacking it with his razor-sharp claws. And all the water is going to come pouring out. And as she adjusts from breathing water to breathing air, that's when Amphibian grabs her energy gun from her hand and uses it to blast a hole through her chest, just destroying her lungs and destroying basically her life.
Well, I mean, maybe she reaches for another syringe to turn him human.
Amphibian's an alien. Like, what is she going to do? Revert him back into an alien?
Yes. No. I don't know.
She's dead.
Okay, well, right when Amphibian kills Dr. Nina Mazursky, that's when Frankenstein, who now has 6 arms, picks up Amphibian, because Frankenstein collected and grafted his bride's arms onto his body, and so each of the bride's 4 arms are holding one of Amphibian's limbs, just stretching them out so he can't move. Well, Frankenstein is going to use his own super strong arms to squeeze Amphibian's neck until pop! He just gets popped like a zit.
So I just have Satana left, but you only have Frankenstein left. So it's just those 2 left on the battlefield. So Satana's going to swoop in and land a big ol' smoochy smooch right on Frankenstein's lips. She was like, come here, you big lug. Mwah. And Frankenstein's like, whoa. And he's probably feeling pretty good about himself, except that Satana is a succubus, okay? By kissing Frankenstein, she just stole his soul, and it comes out of his body in the form of a butterfly out of his mouth, and his body gets all desiccated and just goes straight to hell. And with him out, the Legion of Monsters win.
I mean, I don't think Frankenstein was as flattered as you think. For one, you know, his heart belongs to the bride. And
that would have mattered.
Actually, in addition to grafting his bride's arms onto his body, he also grafted her head into his chest where his heart is in order to save her. He's like Quato from Total Recall, right?
Oh.
Her head is just in his chest. So his body has 2 consciousnesses now. And while Frankenstein's soul may have been stolen, sure, the bride is still around, and she's going to take control of the body. And she doesn't appreciate this demon hoe trying to make moves on her man. So, you know, the bride's going to grab Frankenstein's sword, which once belonged to the Archangel Michael, by the way, so it's holy. And she's going to plunge that blade right into Satana's head, sending her back to hell, meaning the creature commandos win.
I'm going to say that Frankenstein meant to graft the bride's head onto his body, but he just forgot to. He just did the arms. So
what? I literally just said that he did that.
Well, I'm saying that he didn't, that he forgot to. So we'll go ahead and find out which of these scenarios happens by inputting the character stats into our team simulator, comparing thousands of matrices against each other, and coming back with a winner.
AJ9K, hit it.
Inputting data, running calculations, processing results, simulations complete.
All right, this was actually a pretty close matchup. I didn't think it would be that close because the character of Satana turned out to be way more powerful than she had any right to be within this team duel. Like, she was far beyond anybody else on either of these teams. Out of all of her matches, she actually won over 90% of them. So, yeah, that was a little bit of a mismatch, including Satana on the Legion of Monsters. But I also had Zombie on my team, who was by far the weakest character out of anybody on either team. He only won 1/5 of all of his matches.
Yeah, as we learned in our Werewolf by Night versus Solomon Grundy match, zombies are pretty weak stat-wise, but at least even Solomon Grundy had super strength going for him.
Well, I mean, Zombie has super strength, but like zombies in general, they don't have great stats in terms of speed or range or intelligence, you know, things like that. So I'm just convinced that we would all just be fine if a zombie apocalypse were to ever happen.
You had the strongest guy and the weakest guy. My strongest guys were actually Frankenstein and G.I. Robot. Both of those guys ended up winning 60% each of their matches.
And overall, the stat categories that the Legion of Monsters had over the Creature Commandos was, first of all, durability. Like, it is really hard to kill most of the Legion of Monsters characters, but also strength. A lot of my guys were pretty damn strong.
But the Creature Commandos had intelligence and range going for them. Not only do we have several doctors and members who have lived for centuries on the team, but they're all pretty much packing heat as well.
Yeah. A lot of my guys didn't have any range at all, basically. They had to get in close and personal in order to inflict any sort of damage.
So taking all of this into consideration, Joseph, who do you think came out on top?
I'm going to say it's going to be Legion of Monsters. I think it's going to be close, but I think Legion of Monsters is still going to come out on top, largely because they're just more ferocious and badass. The Instagram poll takers, though, disagree with me. 53% of them voted in favor of the Creature Commandos winning this fight. I have to think that maybe that's just due to the upcoming television show that's coming out, but who knows? It's going to be a close match.
Oh, you think so, huh? Well, let's find out. AG90K, the results, please.
Here you are, sir.
The winner of the team matchup between Creature Commandos and Legion of Monsters is Legion of Monsters. All right. They won 517 of the 1,000 matches, or 51.7% of the time, compared to the Creature Commandos, who won 48.3. Now, I have to say, I am actually kind of surprised that the Legion of Monsters did not have a higher win rate. This is a closer match than I thought it would be. Once we started putting in the stats and I saw how powerful Satana was compared to everyone else, I was like, oh crap, I totally am going to lose this match for sure. But I thought it was going to be by a lot more. So in a way, I still feel good about this because my team did better than I thought we would.
Well, let's be real. If I didn't have Satana on my Legion of Monsters team, these guys may not have been able to pull off a victory. Like,
That's true.
Was far and above everybody else. And yeah, it was kind of a little bit of a mismatch, you could say, or you could just say that was strategic thinking on behalf of myself and the executive producers.
Or you could say you guys were a bunch of cheaters. There's also that.
You could say anything, really. You could also just say that you chose your team wrong, you know?
Oh, I actually liked my team, though, and I'm still proud of our turnout.
I liked your team, too. Yeah, I liked it as well. And the fact that they lost. And in your face. And I hope that everyone's Halloween is as scary as these results were to DC fans.
Okay, so not that scary, because you guys didn't win by that much? Gotcha. That does it for this episode, guys. AJ9K, help close us out.
Thanks for listening to Dynamic Duel. Visit the show's website at dynamicduel.com and follow us on Instagram at Dynamic Duel Podcast. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/dynamicduel and joining a tier that works for you, or by rating and reviewing Dynamic Duel on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or on our website. Don't forget to listen to the other shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network, including Max Destruction, Senjo World, and Console Combat.
In our next episode, we will be reviewing the upcoming Sony Marvel film, Venom: The Last Dance. I'm not expecting huge things. I'm hoping that it's at least better than Venom: Let There Be Carnage, but we will find out and discuss it next time. But that does it for this episode, guys. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson,
John Starosky,
Zachary Hepburn,
Dustyn Balcom,
Miggy Matanguihan,
Brandon Estergard,
Nathaniel Wagner,
Levi Yeaton,
Austin Wesolowski,
AJ Dunkerley,
Scott Camacho,
Gil Camacho,
Adam Speas,
Andrew Schunk,
Dean Maleski,
Devin Davis,
Joseph Kersting,
and Josh Liner for helping make this podcast possible. We'll talk to you guys next week. Up, up, and away!
True believers.
I was working in the lab late one night when my eyes beheld an eerie sight, for my monster from his slab began to rise, and suddenly, to my surprise, he did the monster mash.